All right, welcome class to the introduction to chapter 21. Chapter 21 is going to be about pure competition. It's going to be about monopolistic competition. It's going to be about oligopolies, and it's also going to be about monopolies. So let's start. Pure competition. Pure competition. There's a bunch of different examples. So here's first one is stocks. Stocks are an example of pure competition, the buying and selling of stocks in the stock exchange. Also, small farms would be an example of pure competition, or medium-sized farms. Farms in general in America would just fall under pure competition. Also, the currency market would also fall under pure competition. Now let's explain why do these things fall under pure competition. So first, each of these four, pure competition, monopolistic competition, oligopolies, and monopolies, are all going to have 5 criteria. So pure competition, its first criteria is that all firms sell an identical or standardized product. So for example, all dollar bills are going to be standardized. They're all going to be the same. Now, of course, yes, some might be crinkled, some might be crisp, but they're both worth the same value. Now, so that would be an example. If I go and exchange my $100 for something else, it's still going to be worth $100. So therefore, it's a standardized or almost identical. Now, another one would be farms. So imagine a cow that's maybe 500 pounds or something. Okay, that cow is going to be worth the same amount as another cow from another farm, as long as it's 500 pounds. And so again, are going to be standardized. Okay, so it's pure competition. Now, a second criteria to fall under pure competition is that all firms are price takers. To expand this, let's talk about the third criteria. All firms have a relatively small market share. Therefore, there's lots of sellers. So if you think about it, there's lots of farmers out there. There's lots of people with currency out there. There's lots of stocks out there. There are a lot of people out there who are willing to sell the same product you are. Therefore, you can't set the price. So let's pretend you're this guy here in the orange, and you want to set the price at a certain amount to sell your cows. But there's Joe Schmo over here in the corner who, if you raise your price, he's just going to sell below you because he is willing to do that. And so in pure competition, there's so many people out there selling the same product as you can't really set your price. The consumer really sets the price. So all firms have a relatively small market share, therefore there's lots of sellers. Now, the fourth part is the industry is characterized by freedom of entry and exit. So what this means is someone can enter the market and sell stocks easily, buy stocks easily. There are people who can enter and become farmers relatively quickly. Same thing with purchasing currencies. It's easy. People can come in and buy stuff. And at the same point, if they're not being profitable, they can easily exit. It's not difficult. And so that's the nature of a pure competition market structure, is that people can enter easily and exit easily. All firms are also as efficient as possible, because if you're not efficient, you're going to lose. You're going to be done. And so all the firms working in pure competition are working efficiently. If they're not, they're going to be gone soon. And so just something to keep in mind when thinking about pure competition. Now, monopolistic competition, some examples of it would be pizza places, restaurants. And so if you look at this pizza place, they're selling pizza, someone else is selling pizza. I'll explain that in just a second. Another example would be retail stores that sell shoes, dresses, etc. These are all examples of monopolistic competition. So let me get into the nitty-gritty here. Their first criteria to be a monopolistic competition is that all firms produce similar but differentiated products, not perfectly substitutable products. So for example, our award-winning pizza place over here is making pizza with the same ingredients as Domino's, but they're just a little differentiated. They both have cheese, they both have pepperoni, they both have dough, they both have sauce, but there's differences, just a little bit of differences. Same thing over here with the shoes. There's one retail store that sells an athletic shoe, Another one sells an athletic shoe as well. Of course, a little differentiated. One's Adidas, maybe one's Nike, maybe one's whatever. You also have, women's shoes. There's high heels here, there's high heels there. Again, a little differentiated with different colors, maybe different straps, etc. So they're similar product. They are substitutable, but there's a little differences to them. Okay, so that's the first criteria. Second criteria is all firms have some market power. They have some market power because firms have a small control over the price. So let me help explain this a little bit more. So in the last example, we had a lot of people in the market. With a monopolistic competition, there's just a little bit less people in the market. And so as a result, the people who are in the market have just a little bit more control of the price. So for example, our pizza guy there, he can kind of control his price a little bit, but still it's a monopolistic competition. There's a lot of people out there, so he can't raise his price too much because someone else can go buy pizza someplace else. And so that's monopolistic competition. Now a fourth point would be all firms are able to enter the industry if the profits are attractive. So that means, again, it's going to be easy for someone to come into the market and buy and sell stuff. At the same point, it should be easy in a monopolistic competition for people to leave. And of course, the fifth point is that all firms are trying to be as efficient as possible. Again, just like with pure competition, there's going to be people who are trying to be as efficient as possible. Because if they're not, there's a lot of other people who can come and sell that same product at a better price, etc. And so, very competitive. All right, now an oligopoly. Oligopoly. Some examples of oligopolies are the auto industry, and I'll explain why in a second. But the auto industry. Another one is a lot of household appliances are part of oligopolies. Okay, so let's get into it. The 5 criteria. First one: few firms produce a standardized, or differentiated product, and so there's a little bit more differentiation going on now in an oligopoly. The second point is there are few firms. So if you see in this picture here, instead of having a lot of people, we now just have a few groups of people selling now. And so as a result, this means each firm has a larger chunk of the market share, and as a result, firms have a small control over the product price, a little bit larger than in our pure competition, and a little bit larger than our monopolistic competition. However, here's a little but. But with collusion, they have large control. In a sense, they can all work. That's what collusion means. Working together, they can decide they're going to set the price at a certain amount. They're all the auto industries came together and said, we're going to set the price at a certain amount. They could all do that, and as a result, they could have a large control over the price. And so, if there's not collusion, however, they still have a small control because there's still a big, group of them. If you don't like the price of one, you can go to the other still. And so, so there's fewer firms in an oligopoly, and they can collude, and we'll explain a little bit more of that as we go along. There are obstacles for new businesses to enter this type of market. So if you think about it, here's a little guy here. There's an obstacle you have to get over. You have to get a license to work in this type of industry. Or it just might be the sheer largeness or the sheer complexity of this product makes it, you need to invest a lot of money in a certain type of technology to really be able to come into this business. You really need to know your stuff a little bit more before you can come into this business. And so there's some obstacles. Sometimes there's even some legal obstacles. You need a certain license from the government to come into this industry. So that's another criteria for an oligopoly. Now, the 5th criteria is all firms are trying to be as efficient as possible unless collusion is taking place again. And we're going to explain more. Sometimes it seems like there are companies that are colluding, but they're actually not. And so we'll explain how companies are not technically colluding, but indirectly are setting prices. And that has to do with game theory, and we'll get to that. Now, so these are the 5 criteria for oligopoly. I want to have us watch just a quick little video that also explains a little bit more of this collusion part of oligopoly. So stand with me here for a second. All right.
Businesses in an oligopoly can agree to price collusion and create barriers to entry for newcomers. If the businesses do not, they would likely be forced to lower their prices and open the market for newer, smaller firms. For example, OC's Foods and Ron's Munchies dominate the canned foods industry in Investo-America. The products of both companies are carried by all the major department stores and grocers in the nation. As both companies maintain market dominance and can effectively set the price of goods, neither business will lower their prices to gain a competitive advantage over the other, although similar products may be priced differently. Because they are the 2 largest producers in the market, the decisions of one firm invariably affect the decisions of the other. Some firms explicitly collude to avoid a price war, as in the case with OC's Foods and Ron's Munchies, while other oligopolies compete through diversifying their products. It is a careful game played by large companies, and one wrong move could result in a company being pushed out of the market entirely.
All right. So you heard there that they're trying to diversify. They need to diversify an oligopoly, or we could also call it differentiate. So back to our criteria. So let's move on to monopolies for a second. Now, a pure monopoly, they exist in places like your utilities from your city, for the phone, the gas, the electricity, the water companies. A lot of those are pure monopolies in a lot of cities. However, in bigger cities, they're less likely to be monopolies. But I believe in Dubuque, you have a lot of these companies are monopolies. However, I believe in Dubuque there is a little bit more of an exception to this one. In my city, in Plathville, Wisconsin, there's a monopoly of the cable and television. There is no other alternative but one company to get cable with. Now, I believe it's different in Dubuque, but in smaller towns, pure monopoly of cable isn't a difficult thing. So now those are some of the examples. Let's talk about what are the criteria now. The criteria. First one firm produces a standardized or differentiated product that has no real substitutes. So TV, I can only get through this one company. I can't necessarily go and get the cable television through another company where I live. The gas, I can't just say, you know what, I don't want gas with you, I'm going to go with another company, and they're going to come and build a whole new infrastructure to put pipes of gas sending to my house. Unlikely. So there is no real substitutes for these for these products. Now, if you look, the one firm produces a standardized or differentiated. In a pure monopoly, it doesn't necessarily need to be standardized or differentiated. It can be either. So most in these examples, the gas, the electricity, the water, the telephone, it's all standardized. But there are some examples of differentiation. So the second criteria is the one firm has the entire market share. Obviously, it's a pure monopoly. There's one company that has control. So as a result, the firm has considerably large control over the product price. They get to set the price because there's no one else out there who's selling that product. Now, the fourth criteria is there's a barrier blocking new businesses from entering the market. And now, there could be all sorts of barriers. There could be the city says no other company is allowed to come here, or it could just be the fact that it's geographically in a very remote place, and it's almost an impossible barrier to get past to build new cable wires to get to a new small city. And so it's that barrier It can be temporary.